Welcome to AFI Fest 2020, presented by Audi. My name is Malin and I'm a programmer with the festival. Before we begin, I just want to thank all of our supporters, our presenting sponsor Audi, our AFI members, as well as you, our audience. Thank you so much for joining us in this very special virtual edition of AFI Fest. The AFI Fest Shorts programs this year constitute just 33 films selected out of nearly 3,000 submissions, and we are so pleased to have had the opportunity to see these films and now to be sharing them with you. You should have all just seen our Shorts Program 5. These are such incredible films, and I am so pleased to welcome our filmmakers that are here today. Our filmmakers are, with 1984, period piece in present day, Sean Glass. With Swimmer, Jonatan Etzler. With Blocks, Bridget Moloney. With Claire at 7 months, Jacob Halpren. With David, Zach Woods. With The Feeling, Bridey, Elliot. With Postpartum, Henriette, Rietz. Thank you guys so much for being here. We love these films so much. I just want to, start off the conversation by asking what was kind of the inspiration for all of these films. Where did you kind of draw this inspiration or begin, contemplating how you would make this film? So let's just start with you, Sean.
This all just really happened to me. My movie was all like, I had that memory and it was wrong, and I found it out with someone I was dating, and it made me question how close I was to a line that I thought I was much further from, and making the film was an exploration of that, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to physically see how I would feel going closer to that line, and that was physically the making of the film. And it's something that I hadn't really approached in real life, but I brought myself down that rabbit hole in the making of it, and it felt really weird.
Yeah, well, I read this news item like 10 or 15 years ago, and it was about like two policemen trying to arrest a man in a swimming pool. And I just thought it was like such a bizarre situation. And I really thought that this would be like the end of a big like feature film or something, like some sort of Breaking Bad story that ended in this way. But then I thought maybe this scene could be a film of its own, and it could be a short film. So that's where it came from. But it's very loosely inspired by reality. It's not.
So I made my movie Blocks based on my own experience as the mom of two small children. And I wanted to explore sort of a visual metaphor for what it felt like to be caring for them. And this idea of like unending drudgery. I love my children very much. I feel like I always need to add that. Really happy to have them. But and so I had this image came to me one day when I was cleaning up of vomiting Legos, and how I would just like rinse them off and put them away, because that was sort of the endless loop I was locked in. And I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea for something. Maybe I'll shoot a one-pager. And then I was like, oh no, I'll open it up and make it a whole short based on that idea.
I had made a short the year previously with Emily, who plays the lead, Claire. And that was kind of just one scene, and we had talked about wanting to make something a little larger in scope. And I'd always wanted to shoot in my hometown in Florida, where I knew I had access to certain locations. And it kind of just grew from there. Plus, I was interested in this idea of like how sometimes in your life, some of the bigger emotional responses come from the most unlikely and like unexpected of places. Just kind of going from there.
The story's about a therapist and one of his patients, and then his kid wanting attention. And I guess I was interested in stories about mess, and I think like a lot of times like the most loving thing that I know how to do or receive, I guess, is enduring mess for somebody, like your own and the other person's. And so I think it's funny, like the way people are messy, and it's funny. So I wanted to make a story about people sort of enduring mess on behalf of people they love.
My animation film is very autobiographical, and I gave birth to my first child in 2017, and the first few days and weeks with the newborn were super overwhelming for me. And I just had to catch all the feelings and all the experience I had during that time. And I was also a bit shocked how it is with a child, and I really had the desire to make a movie out of it. And the crazy thing is that my movie is finished this year in March, and I gave birth to my second child 3 months ago. So now I just experienced it again, and the movie is out. So it's a crazy combination of it all.
All of you guys have such incredible performances in your films. You know, Sean, you, for instance, you found just this wonderful co-star in Isabel Sandoval. I was hoping you could just talk about how you came to cast her and what it was like working with her to create these characters and their kind of shared sense of history.
I met Isabel at the premiere for her. So we were at Locarno, and a friend of Isabel's was like, oh, you have to, just like other New York City people were like, oh, my other New York City friend is going to be at Venice premiering her film, and you have to go. And we connected, and I went to her premiere of Lingua Franca, which is now like huge on Netflix and on taxis outside, which is crazy. And we had lunch right after, like literally across on the Lido after her film. And I like was thinking about this while watching her film, because I originally wrote the film not with the whole, there was no, like the trans idea like is unrelated. I really loved casting a trans actress not in a role that's about the trans experience. Just like she was great in her film, and I was watching it and I was like, oh, this is the role. And we like reinvented it together. And yeah, it just became something else with her compared to what I had originally thought of. And having another filmmaker on set with me was also added to the profundity of creating it, because our shared language was, we could speak completely fluently together. So it was like having a full-on collaborator. It was really wonderful. I loved working with her. And I hope everyone watches her film that's out right now, Lingua Franca, and her next film that she's doing with Locarno. And yeah, it's great. Awesome.
Jonatan, your film has this lead actor in it who has this incredible, like just interesting and enigmatic face, despite, you know, hardly having any dialogue in the film. How do you direct a performance that is so kind of facial expression focused?
Oh, well, I really wanted to like work with amateur actors for this film, because I worked with a lot of professional actors before, and this guy who plays the lead, Pontus, he's actually he constructs crossword puzzles, so that's his daily job, and basically what I just tried to do was to sort of let him be himself. It was really like, it was really nice collaboration. Really, he was just like he really could like embody this guy who just wants to escape from everything, you know. But I worked with a lot of improvisations, and I did a lot of rehearsals before with the 3 actors, and basically some of the dialogue sort of grew from improvisations. But it was a great experience, really. I really loved it. He was great to work with.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing working with non-actors. You know, Zach, you have kind of, you know, you're working with these known people, with Will Ferrell, with William Jackson Harper, but then Fred Heschinger comes in and he just completely explodes everything. How did you get these like 3 distinct performances from such huge personalities and have them all kind of complement each other?
I mean, I don't think I can really take credit, you know. I mean, just hiring them is how we did it. Or hiring is probably not the right word. Begging, and then I don't know. I think about, well, my background is mostly as an actor, and I had an acting teacher once who told me this thing that really stuck with me, which is there was some theater director in maybe it was Poland, I don't remember, but evidently this director would always get the most incredible performances of people's careers out of them. And they asked the actors, you know, this was over like decades, they were like, what is it about this guy? And they said that we knew that whatever we did, he would find fascinating and delightful. So it just created such a wide range where you could just sort of experiment and do all kinds of stuff, and you just felt there would be this unwavering fascination at the very least and delight. And so I tried to keep that in mind. And then the other thing is that same acting teacher who told me something that was also really helpful, which is like, I was saying, do you have any advice for directing? And she said, don't become too seduced by your own ideas. Try to stay in your experience and reflect your experience back to the actors. So rather than sort of having your idea of how the scene should go or your pretty thoughts about it, try to speak more from like a physical or a visceral way, because it's easier for actors, I guess it depends on the actor, but to then metabolize that and make use of it. So that's what I tried to do. But the short and more accurate answer is those guys are beautiful and generous with their spirits. And I know this is sort of a crunchy answer, but that's all them.
No, it's perfect. They're just wonderful performances. You know, Bridget, you mentioned before that this is kind of something that's based on your own experience. You know, I read that it was shot in your home and using your own children, I believe.
Yeah.
Could you talk about how you used magical realism to kind of help you explore an experience that is so kind of personal and intimate?
I like to work a lot in metaphor. And so it felt like the best way in, because like, you know, I hang out with a lot of people who are parents, and this, when I would pitch them this idea, they'd be like, yeah, obviously, like, yeah, that works. And then people who weren't, sometimes it was a tougher sell, but then the movie's gone over really well with people who, no matter where they are in parenting or not at all. But yeah, my line about it now that I've talked about it more is that parenting is magical realism. There's so much weirdness and like body horror, which was, I think, some of us on this call probably know, and just like bizarre stuff. And I remember having my first baby and thinking a lot about the yellow wallpaper and being like, I get that now. Like, not for female hysteria, but like I was like hallucinating, kind of, sort of. Everyone was safe, but like it was all, and I had nothing clinically significant going on. So I just thought, like, I want to create a world that any viewer can then understand how wild this all feels. Even when, like, you're a person of privilege in a pretty good situation, it still is this sort of bizarre through the looking glass. And I did use my own children, and they were wonderful, but I'm never going to do that again. And I'm also never going to film in my own home again. But Claire Coffey, who plays the mom, is one of my best friends and is a terrific actress. So she made that super easy. But my house was built in 1918, and like, it's not a set. Like, you know, our camera operator was like literally curled around the base of our sink to be able to get shots of the toilet. I was like, well, I saved money. So there was that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's hard not to relate your film with Henriette's film, Postpartum, because obviously they're both pregnancy stories or motherhood stories, you know, and Henriette, kind of likewise, your entryway into this personal story is animation. Did that kind of help you confront maybe some of the more difficult aspects of this story?
I mean, the content and the visuals are a bit in a contrast. Like the visuals are very bright and goofy maybe. And so I think that definitely helped a bit. There was no other option for me than doing an animation film, because then like my roots are illustrations and GIF animations, and so it was absolutely clear for me to make an animation film that is made out of GIF animations, if you see it like that, because you have all these scenes that are switching, and yeah.
Jacob, you mentioned before that this is your film was shot in your hometown. It's also a film about a woman who is returning home in this kind of period of crisis. What was that experience like for you to kind of mirror hers?
It's not really a personal story. I just had always wanted to film in my hometown, and I'd sort of written it around Emily, who has never been pregnant. It wasn't her lived experience, but we had just kind of started having conversations and with each other, and then also having conversations with different people in our lives and listening to them, and kind of just starting to write. And then when we would rehearse, we'd kind of be like, oh, this is working, this isn't working, and kind of just have it grow from there. But it was much more, I just wanted to make a film set in a beach town, and I live in New York, and it wasn't really going to work there. So yeah, just kind of, that was the genesis of that, I guess.
Sean, the setting in your film feels very important. There's a way in which kind of being inside the room seems to represent safety for this couple, but then it is undermined in a way when she's given insight into the subconscious of her partner. How did you kind of create this sense of atmosphere, and what was the importance of place for you as you were making this film?
I shot in Absecon, which is the road outside of, it's literally basically just like a road outside of Atlantic City, New York. And I just feel similarly with Venice, I've been obsessed with like places that are in decay, kind of. I hope that doesn't come across as like, it's of the past and it's not meant for today. So very short outside my hometown, like where my grandmother used to work, she was a dancer, is this place that's like a remnant of all these things that have happened in the past. And it's it's not supposed to be there. That's what it feels like. Like when I'm there, I feel like I'm not supposed to be there. And I look around and it's like the Trump stuff is 5 seconds away from the Rainforest Cafe. And 5 minutes down the road is the Walter Reed Drive-In from the 50s. That is where I shot. I shot at a motel that's on the plot of the Walter Reed Drive-In. And it's just not supposed to be there. And that was the whole theme of this idea of exploring where danger comes from, and this couple who are in a place where I feel like they're not supposed to be. And the question is, but is she safe with who she thinks she's safe with? So she was surrounded by things that she wasn't supposed to be surrounded by, yet the thing that she felt attached to is the thing I spend the time putting into question. And that dynamic is what I feel personally when I go there, because everyone talks about how messed up the town is and corrupt and all the Trump stuff. Yet when I go there, what I feel is this sense of like, I've been assimilated into this long history of New York City, yet I have all this dissonance with it. And that's what I really wanted to explore in making the film, like literally in my personal life, like with my grandmother's history and stuff. And I kind of projected that onto Isabel's experience.
Jonatan, you know, your film starts by saying based on a true story. You said it's based on a true story, kind of, because at some point it goes a little bit off the rails, and particularly in the ending, you know, this obviously, you know, is this kind of fantastic element that you've thrown into the film. Could you talk about that decision? Yeah,
I think from the start, I really wanted to sort of explore this sort of poetic dimension of this idea, the idea that you want to escape no matter what, and you want to like he just doesn't want to acknowledge reality. Basically, he wants to like and I think like any second when he goes under the water, it's like it's like the rest of the world doesn't exist. And I think this is sort of it's also pretty like relevant to our times, that you want, I mean, currently this is this time when we want to sort of escape reality. We don't really want to be here. And I think like it has, when I've shown it, it has had this sort of resonance to people that it's sort of like a symbol for that sort of feeling, I think. And yeah, and that decision was, I mean, basically the film had another ending from the beginning. It was really like they were going to empty the pool, and then one of them climbed down and put handcuffs on him but then when she was going to climb up again, the ladder sort of starts up here, so she can't like go up. So she's stuck in the pool with him. So she's like a prisoner together with him. So that was supposed to be the ending. But then we sort of like, I mean, we wanted to sort of twist it toward this sort of more surreal thing that you see in the film.
Bridey, your film also has some really kind of incredible wild twists and turns. You wrote the script with John Daly, who's your co-star in the film, and you know, you guys are both so wonderful together. What was the writing process for you like? What was your collaboration?
John and I had taken a trip to Big Bear last year, and it was really inspired by that trip. We were just like, Big Bear is so friggin' weird and funky and fun, and we stayed at this like particular Airbnb that felt a lot like the place that they're in the film, the cabin. And it was kind of a combination of wanting to shoot something in Big Bear and then like getting obsessed with this realtor couple on YouTube that we found that give these seminars of like how to invest. And we kind of went off of them into their world and their love for each other. And that's sort of how we came up with it.
Amazing. I mean, continuing with your film and also including Jacob and Zach, all of your films really beautifully balance this kind of tenderness with very uncomfortable humor. I would love for you all to kind of talk about how you walked that line. Bridey, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted it to feel uncomfortable, and it's just kind of about inconvenient love when you love someone, but it's completely wrong and it's not right. And so it was a lot about kind of the combination of these people who are not good. They're gross, greedy, weird people, and also finding them really like empathizing with them and making them real. And I also knew Kimmy Robertson a little bit, Lucy from Twin Peaks, for those who don't know. And I really wanted to write something where she got to like show off a new shade of her, you know? And she was really good. I mean, writing her, I just kept being like, oh, Kimmy, like writing in her voice. I was like, she's gonna make this really funny if I just like keep doing like, what? Like everything she said. So I knew like with her, because she also like Twin Peaks is so the kind of humor line that we wanted to flow with. So that was also a good way for us to get a handle on the tone.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's really just totally wild. And you know, Zach, I think there's like a 10-second portion of your film that just rides all of the different emotions. Could you talk about, you know, what it was like to have this kind of discomfort blended with this kind of intense sweetness?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much my experience of life, is just that it's uncomfortable and sad and funny. And it's weird. It's like the movies that you know, like the movies that you watch again and again because they're comforting to you. Like if you feel whatever form of existential dread settles on you that day and you want to see something that sort of reorients you. Almost all of those movies for me are movies that are neither like comedies nor dramas. Like because I think like movies that are like deadly serious feel as unrealistic to me as movies that are like bonkers Medusa, like where it's just people going crazy, you know? And both those can be enjoyable, but the ones that really like are helpful to me in some way are ones that feel realistically funny and realistically uneasy. I think like when you love someone, you find them sad and you find them funny often. Like you're attuned to the ways in which they suffer and you're attuned to the ways in which they're ridiculous. And I guess my goal, anytime I'm doing something creative, directing, acting, whatever, is to try to love the characters. So hopefully that involves some element of both, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of love in your film.
Oh, good.
And I guess, you know, Jacob, your film doesn't seem like it's an outright comedy, but there is, you know, this karaoke scene at the end that is so kind of riding that line between extremely sad and kind of hilarious, especially with, you know, choosing the song How Bizarre, which is kind of seems like a punchline in itself.
Yeah, it turned into a happy accident with the lullaby at the end.
Yeah, what was writing that scene like? Or
I mean, yeah, I'm always, similar to what Zach said, I've always been a fan of like films that balance the sad with like the weird, goofy, uncomfortable comedy. And Matt Baratz, who plays Cody, who does a great karaoke impression of How Bizarre, I'd always seen him play kind of more absurd characters, and I wanted something a little more emotionally grounded. And I just had this idea of like this person opening up to someone who's probably the least emotionally equipped to handle it, and then him saying, "Let me play you something," and you think maybe he's going to put on a song, or originally he was going to play a really cringy acoustic guitar version of that, and then he didn't know how to play guitar, so we're like, oh, what if he just brought out a karaoke machine and performed for her? And yeah, I had that image of someone really trying their best but just being so tone deaf and off, and Claire's response just coming out of nowhere. And I don't know, yeah, it balances, like you're saying, the deeply sad with the, okay, this is also hilarious, but I'm not sure whether to laugh or cry. And the character's not sure whether to as well. She can't control herself, but yeah.
I want to go back to the blocks and postpartum duo here. They both represent this, or present this perspective on motherhood that I don't think we ordinarily see reflected in film. But these are probably experiences that are shared by so many women. What have some of the reactions been that you've gotten from women, Bridget?
It's been very gratifying. And, you know, all art, right? The idea is like to have the, oh God, I'm not alone feeling for your audience. And there's definitely been a lot of that. I've been surprised also, and men have responded really well to it too. But it surprised me also is that a lot of people who don't have children have been moved by this, like the way the sort of overwhelm is presented, that it's trapped for people just with other things in their life that feel like they demand a lot of attention. But yeah, a lot of people have been, a lot of mothers have said to me that they have appreciated this sense that it's, you know, oh God, you'd think I could have a concise answer, but that's not who I am. So I'm just gonna live with that. But the idea, a friend of mine was like, you know, somebody told her she was a cool mom, and she was like, you know, mothers are just women with children. I ruined the joke there. And I feel like that was something that was important to me with the movie, is that you see her sex life, you see her talking about her body in different ways. And like, yeah, she has children, and that's a huge part of it. But that the identity part of becoming a parent, especially a mother in, I would say, a hetero cisgendered couple, is that your identity gets consumed really fast generally, even with millennial wokeness working as hard as they can, and all of us talking about fair play and the mental load. I'm still like, motherfucker, look at this. So I think that's definitely something that people have responded to watching the movie. And, you know, after we had an in-person premiere, because it was in January, and a woman came up to me in tears, and I was like really taken aback, but it was really nice that because it's a comedy, but, you know, I'm calling it an existential comedy, and it's really been gratifying that people have seen themselves reflected in it and feel like it speaks to them and for them. And I'll stop talking now. But to answer your question, there you go.
Awesome. And Henriette, have you had any, you know, similar experiences?
Yes, definitely. Well, not too many people have seen the movie yet, because it just the film festival season just started for me. But last weekend I was at an actual festival, like really there, and I got messages even from women that don't have children yet, that said that it's they saw the movie and they said it was super funny but also super touching at the same time. And they said that now they can actually feel a bit more how their friends that turned into mothers feel a bit in the first days and weeks. And also the Charlotte Roche, she's quite a famous personality here in Germany. She made the voiceover for the film, and when we did the voiceover together at the day, she had tears in her eyes and said it's like the movie is like so on point how it is in the postpartum time, because it's just such an absurd time, and you're like so vulnerable. Sorry for my English, but yeah, vulnerable. Yeah, that's the word, right? Like, and but also everything is so funny and sad, and so yeah. And I'm super surprised that the movie actually works in English, because it's I was very sure that it only works in German, with the German jokes, and because it only has subtitles, but maybe not, or probably not.
I think there were a couple cultural, cultural references that completely went over my head, but
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, there's like one scene where I say I transform myself into I'm not even sure, nuclear tit powerhouse, right?
Oh, that makes sense to me.
And then in German it's Atomtittenkraftwerk, which is more like a funny word, you know what I mean? I think lots of stuff only works in Germany, but maybe English speaking people see it in a different way, but yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to talk with me today. We love these films. Thank you for, participating in the festival, for including your film with AFI Fest. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.